So I'm sure you guys know of the channel called Breaking Points. It's hosted by Krystal Ball and Saagar Enjeti. Now recently there was something that happened on the Breaking Points channel that made me almost do a video on it, but after doing more kind of research and thought into it, I didn't feel like the conclusion was as conclusive as I needed it to be to make a video. But now I feel like it's becoming more clear as to a question of, the question is, who is the audience of Breaking Points? Is Breaking Points really just right-wing? Because keep in mind, it has Krystal Ball, a left-wing progressive host, and then it has Saagar Enjeti, who is, he's a right-winger. He's one of those right-wing populists, whatever that means. To me, he's more of just a crypto-fascist personally. But, that's the kind of model of the Breaking Point show. And so the question kind of becomes, well, who is the audience? That's always the interesting question. So there was a poll done on the Breaking Points channel. They do a lot of polls. They've been doing a lot of polls lately asking their audience questions. And so this question that had originally sparked the question, it says, was Manchin right to tank Biden's Build Back Better legislation? Obviously, remember that Joe Manchin tanked the reconciliation bill that would have, had tons and tons of benefits for working class people in the country. And he said, no, I'm tanking it. So it was DOA, essentially. So when you look at the results, you could see that actually a majority of people said yes. So you're not really going to see progressives saying that Manchin was right to tank Biden's Build Back Better legislation. So immediately you would assume, the audience must be leaning right-wing because there's almost a supermajority vote in favor of yes, which is definitely extreme. There's 32% no and 12% unsure. That's the rating you can see here. But what it seemed like after reading the comments, it seemed to be a bit more conflicted than I had originally thought, potentially. So a lot of people that in the top comments were essentially saying that the bill was already watered down and garbage, so they were glad that it was nuked. And so because I had read those comments, I had basically said, okay, it's not conclusive enough to say for sure that they are right-wing. So the thing here is, I was going to make a video asking the question, is Breaking Points' audience right-wing, and explain this. I did end up doing a live stream, but for whatever reason, I didn't end up getting around to doing a video on it. But to read some of these top comments is, we need to pass the bill in order to see what's in it, quote, is a quote I will never forget. So this one says, interesting to see this response from Breaking Point subscribers. All I know is that the parts of the bill that I regard as important, inclusion of dental and vision under Medicare, free community college, were no longer in it. So, what were we spending all this money on? Biden did a very poor job of selling this legislation to the American public. Just an observation, I feel like you guys should do these questions before doing a segment. Everyone complaining about it tanking while admitting they knew about the bad parts. Ask yourself one question. Why are these things not being voted on individually? It's because they can't pass all the poor ideas without wrapping it in one or two good ones. No more spend-a-thons. Pass this stuff solely on its merits one by one. So is this a conservative? Is this a progressive? It sounds more like a conservative, but again, it's really murky waters. It's like, who is the audience of Breaking Points? Another thing that had kind of made it a bit ambiguous to me was actually the video they did about like Tucker Carlson, the guest, saying that they need to like sit on a throne of like Chinese skulls or something crazy like that. Or was it that one, or was it women's military something? But there were like people defending women being in the military and stuff. And so that made it even more like ambiguous. It's like, wait a second, like where the hell do these people fall exactly? So they seem to have really garnered like this kind of hard to pin down kind of audience. How many people actually knows what's in these bills? I remember Pelosi saying they needed to pass a bill to see what's in it. How many people actually want government to work this way? They need to quit taking so much time off and pass smaller bills that can be openly debated and are focused rather than the shotgun bills that they hide the pork and favors in. Was the arsonist right to extinguish the fire he started? I think your poll results will be very skewed. The wording is open to interpretation. I think you're asking the wrong question. So, it's just, it's surprising. So this guy says, this surprised me, 56% yes, 32% no. Now I'm curious about where this came from. Triple B was a shadow of a sham, but it did have some positive things in it, and now more than half the people who responded think Manchin did the right thing. There are many reasons to not pass this fig leaf, but crediting Manchin just seems bizarre to me. So this is kind of the weird part about it. Again, to repeat, I know I'm saying this over and over again, but it's just very dubious. And so after reading these comments and seeing this and seeing some of the comments on some of the videos, I was just kind of like, I don't have enough information to make a video saying Breaking Point's audience is right wing. I just did not have enough conclusive evidence to say that. So I even went through like the previous polls to see maybe there was a question that would clearly reveal them as being right wing. But when I went through the other poll questions, there was just nothing. There was simply nothing there to indicate, that there was a question that had the answer where it's like, oh, okay, this definitely reveals them as right wing. So there was just no conclusive evidence. But this one posted 3 days ago. It says, how do you feel about canceling some or all of America's student debt? And so obviously this is something you would expect to see hugely support. But actually, you've got a third of the audience actually saying that they oppose canceling some or all of America's student debt. And so, it's a very Republican thing, or I guess generally, I don't know. It just seems to be even with some Democrats are like this, more conservative Democrats are like this. So it's more of a conservative thing. But it's like if you don't have student loan debt, you just don't care about. Some people just hate students and young people. So people who have a propensity towards hating young people or already hate young people are kind of going to be like, fuck off. Like I don't want to clear your student loan debt. And so, the top comments of this, I support as long as universities have to pay for it. Considering Harvard has a $40 billion endowment, I think they can afford to cover the cost. There's just a bunch of comments here, basically not supporting it. People saying like changing, like capping interest loans and stuff like that, or interest rates on the loans and all of this kind of stuff. But there just does not seem to be all that much support amongst the commenters on this one. It says, in my opinion, this only benefits the more well-to-do in society. How is that possible? Again, the people who have student loan debt are not people who are rich. They would have already paid it off. They would have had their student loans paid off already. There are better ways to spend taxpayer money than canceling debts that were voluntarily taken. So, yeah, that's obviously just not true. I mean, obviously, canceling student loan debt would lead to a huge stimulus in the economy. Obviously, it's just a subsidy, just like the government does. Like, one of the main jobs of the U.S. government at this point is literally subsidizing things that are beneficial to the United States of America. It's like, one of its jobs. It does it in tons of areas. Why would you not want to do it for student loan debt? But again, there's a lot of people who just hate young people in general. And so that's kind of the vibe that you're going to get. So that kind of reveals like, okay, there's definitely a good amount of, Republicans in here. It says, how'd you feel about ending all of the coronavirus restrictions? And support has 77%. Opposes 13%. Unsure is 11%. So ending all of the coronavirus restrictions is certainly very, I would say extremist. Now, I'm somebody who, at this point, I think that if you are vaccinated, definitely outside, you don't need to wear a mask. Inside, you still want to wear a mask, I would say, for sure. If you're vaccinated, I would say, especially with what's going on right now. But, easing some coronavirus restrictions, that's understandable, I would say, for sure. Ending all of the coronavirus restrictions, especially for people who are not vaccinated, I think that's lunacy and extremism. So that's a bit concerning to see 77% saying that. So I would say this is kind of another one in that direction. And again, I'm not saying that easing coronavirus restrictions necessarily means you're right wing, but a question of saying, how would you feel about ending all of the coronavirus restrictions, which is obviously very extremist. I think that kind of does indicate like you're probably right wing. But again, I support easing them for people who are vaccinated, making life more comfortable at this point, especially with the new variant being very mild. And, there's a lot of downsides to coronavirus restrictions themselves. It also seems like humans are just way less social than they used to be now. So there's going to be a litany of issues that come out of that, unfortunately. But Breaking Point's audience is still hard. Even now, it's hard to pin down. But I would say in terms of its audience, if I had to guess right now, maybe like 2/3 are left wing, and then 1/3 is like, or maybe like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, 6/10, like 60% is like left wing, and then 10% are centrists, and then 30% are Republicans. Maybe that's the split. I'm not 100% sure. But any like really loyal Breaking Points viewers, feel free to let me know your thoughts on this. What is your, I have a feeling a lot of people in this audience are going to say that it's right wing, but I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the makeup of Breaking Points' audience? Obviously, it's a sticky one because it's not like the other channels where it's like, oh, this is clearly a left-wing channel. This is clearly a right-wing channel. We know who Stevens Crowder's audience is. We know, who Secular Talk's audience is, right? We don't really know exactly what Breaking Points' audience is. So, obviously it's really important to know what somebody's audience is, because their audience is going to really impact their activity and how they act in their content. So it's important to be aware of that for sure. And I think that is what's actually important here. So let me know your thoughts down below, especially people who are viewers of Breaking Points. I know that there's a lot of people who no longer watch Breaking Points, but there's been some left-wing stuff on there for sure. So let me know.